And it's a conversation about a genre that is been taken increasingly more seriously by the academy. So we find ourselves here at a university, whereas about a couple of generations ago it would have been inconceivable to have a conversation about crime fiction at any university that was striving for repute. And in fact the criticism of crime fiction from those days was a very insular activity. It was basically hobbyists writing for other hobbyists, compiling histories of the genre, which could be very thorough and useful in that they were excavating old books that people wouldn't otherwise know about, pointing people to this or that good one. And I think we still benefit from that because there are a lot of old good ones that we know about and also are looking for. But it was as a critical literature, there wasn't really very much going on. The first group of critics to start taking crime fiction seriously were coming at it from a point of view that was basically Foucauldian, that is indebted to the theorist Michel Foucault, who was very concerned with the workings of power. In other words, that first crime fiction, that first generation of serious crime fiction criticism was interested in the workings of power among the detective, the police, and the criminal, and the idea of finding meaning in those shifting relations. But in more recent years, the criticism has become much more varied, much more pluralistic, and much more interesting. And there's been feminist and masculinist and historicist criticism of different kinds. And so it's kind of an exciting time to be thinking about and reading crime fiction, let alone writing about it. But what all of these generations of criticism take seriously is the idea that crime fiction, in American crime fiction, at least in the 20th century, has been a literature of considerable social commitment. That is, crime writers are thinking seriously about the world that they're writing about in different ways and trying to say different things about it. But and that kind of helps to pave the way to the next to the kind of thinking that we're doing today, taking it seriously. So you want to talk about the sort of urban reformist to getting to the particularist stuff, that the crime fiction started out as at least 20th century crime fiction in the United States was very urban.
Yeah, I think that is a huge difference between crime fiction in the U.S. and crime fiction as it started. Although it started here, it started with Edgar Allan Poe, but it moved almost immediately to England, and it was a literature of problem solving, of puzzle solving, and from the beginning, it was a literature of scientific method and a literature of logical thinking, but not of social engagement. When it came back here, essentially after World War I, in the space between World War I and World War II, and as the hard-boiled and the Private Eye novels developed, and they developed here. And the interesting thing about the Private Eye novel, and of course I'm a little prejudiced because that's what I write, but the interesting thing about the Private Eye novel is that it was two things at the same time. One is it was deliberately the Private Eye himself, and it was always a man in those days, was an extension of the classical hero, where the character was a lost and a doomed character who could not be saved because he knew too much about how the world really worked. But that ability, that inability to save himself, gave him the ability to save other people because he could descend into the underworld and remove them. That bleak outlook was a very American outlook between the wars, and it became the Private Eye moved the literature from the closed and idealized world of order, which had been the English village. The paradigm in the English literature, in the British literature, was a perfect world that would be the village. Chaos erupts in the form of crime. The order has to be restored, and everything is perfect again by the discovery and removal of the criminal. This did not happen in the U.S. The books were brought into the cities. It's said about Chandler that he took murder from the vicarage and put it back in the gutter where it belonged. And that was his point of view also, that the rest of this was nonsense, that what really happened is that people were stabbed to death or thrown off cliffs and stuff for really very minor reasons in the grand scheme of things, and that this was essentially a power relationship. If you read Chandler, who was really one of our founding fathers, the bad guys, the really bad guys, as opposed to the guy at the bottom who is the guy with the gun who shoots somebody, but the people who cause it all are always wealthy. A lot of times they're intellectuals. Chandler had a real thing about doctors. He hated doctors. Partly he used them to stand in for educated intellectuals, and it was easy.
They take a beating in his books.
They really do. And now I think part of that, and this is my own psychological thing, but Chandler's wife had an incurable disease. She was dying for many years and could not be helped. And I think that it made doctors an easy target for him. But I think
giving murder back, though, he said he wanted to give murder back to the people who committed it.
Yeah, which is really kind of what he did. But once you move into the cities, you've moved into the life of real people, the people in the English villages. That was idealized and that was a symbolic life. In the cities, you're talking about actual people, and you have to start talking about race, because you can't pretend that it's a homogenized life in the cities. And so you have to start talking about things that really exist and that really matter and that really affect us even if we don't want them to. And that's what crime literature came to as the critique of it became more complex, as it stopped being just the hobbyists and the stuff itself moved into the realm of literature. It moved also